Hey guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the brand new 2016 Razer Blade. Since Razer's announcement of the 2016 Razer Blade 14 back in March, anticipation has only built over the last few months as delays have pushed out initial shipments further and further out. The level of excitement is warranted though. Razer has promised to deliver a successor that not only performs faster, but does it for $400 cheaper compared to last year's model. Boxing has always been Razer's strong point. The laptop comes in this nicely textured black box with green accents to go with it. Inside the box, we have the Razer Blade, a few information cards, and a cleaning cloth. The included charger is very slim, and what's even more impressive is its 165 watt output. Looking at the Razer Blade's exterior, there are two subtle differences in design. The most noticeable of the two is the texture. Overall, it feels less gritty, and it has a much more premium look and feel. Its tendency to pick up fingerprints, however, hasn't changed much. I found that while it's not as bad as previous generations, it's still a huge magnet. The second most noticeable difference are the two lines milled into the aluminum. In previous generations, the lines were slightly curved and much more subtle. Now we have lines that are in line with what we've seen on the Razer Blade Stealth. It's much more angular and it's a little bit more sharp. Aside from these subtle changes, the laptop's design layout is pretty much identical to its predecessors. We still have the LED lit Razer logo people either love or hate, and the very solid aluminum chassis that has now become a staple in Razer's designs. On the left of the laptop, we have an AC input for the power supply, two USB 3.0 ports, and a 3.5mm headphone mic combo port. In the front, we see a lip that allows you to quickly and easily lift the screen. The base is heavy enough that you can do this with one hand. Awesome. Moving to the right, we see a HDMI 1.4B port that, while it does not support 4K 60Hz, does support 1080p at 120Hz. Moving along, we see another USB 3.0 port, and finally the very exciting Thunderbolt 3 USB-C connector. This connector is bidirectional and full duplex, allowing bandwidth speeds of up to 40 GB per second. This will allow you to connect to the upcoming Razer Core for when you really need the additional GPU performance. However, if you just want support for additional monitors for, say, productivity, and not necessarily require GPU compute power, the Thunderbolt port also supports additional DVI, HDMI, and VGA displays via adapters. Under the laptop, we have two rubber feet that extend the entire width of the laptop. It helps raise the laptop to aid cooling, and the soft rubber material helps keep the laptop from slipping. Flanking each side of the laptop are vent cutouts for where the laptop draws in cool air for the CPU and GPU. Moving on to the keyboard, the Chroma keyboard looks absolutely amazing. The color and configuration options can be a little overwhelming at times, but it has grown on me. And while I generally like my keyboard LEDs off, it's kind of nice to know that it's there when I really want something more colorful. A positive side effect of moving to Chroma is that the font color is no longer that bright neon green. With the LEDs off, you have a very nice contrasting black and white that, along with the new typeface used on the keys, is a very pronounced effect on the look of the laptop, making it much more grown up and mature. The keyboard doesn't just look great, but it's great to type on as well. The keystrokes are crisp and responsive, with very slight resistance on each key press, so you're never left wondering if the key is actuated or not. This translates to a very good experience while both gaming and typing. While I love the majority of the keyboard, I really do have a hard time with the arrow keys. Up and down arrows are much smaller than what I'm used to, and even after a few years of using the Razer Blade and other laptops with similar arrow key layouts, I still find myself missing the keys from time to time. Now you can't bring up Chroma without talking RGB lighting. The Synapse software has all the RGB options you've come to expect from Razer. But what's relatively new and interesting is Razer Chroma's SDK app that allows games to hook into the Chroma RGB lighting. For example, with Overwatch, you can get very cool animations when selecting characters, and even have hotkey illumination in-game. Very cool. The mouse on the Blade provides a very comfortable working surface. There's plenty of room so your fingers never feel cramped when doing gestures, and the surface offers a very smooth experience. The mouse keys, on the other hand, is a love it or hate it ordeal. Some users have made the observation of them being a little too tinny and cheap, but I personally find it crisp and provides a very nice tactile feedback. The only thing that I'm on the fence about are the clicks being really loud. They're kind of like the blue keyboard switches. I love the noise when I'm working alone, but they can get a little annoying in public places. It's not too big of an issue though, since you could just tap to click on the mouse pad. The speakers are upward facing and are placed on opposite sides of the keyboard. They produce very clear, with fairly loud audio that sounds pretty good when listening to music and watching movies. The audio quality itself is solid, it doesn't sound tinny at all. The sound is somewhat lacking on the lower end, but come on, it's a 14-inch laptop. Of course, for the best audio experience, having a set of headphones will probably be the better option. In terms of specs, we have the brand new Skylake Intel Core i7-6700HQ quad-core processor. For memory, we have 16GB of soldered DDR4 memory. For storage capacities, we have two options, either 256 or 512GB. For the display, we have a 14-inch IGZO QHD Plus 3200 by 1800 display. Unfortunately, the 1080p matte display is not an option for this generation. For the discrete graphics, we have an Nvidia GTX 970M GPU with 6GB of VRAM. In terms of performance, I'll be running a few synthetic benchmarks using the basic Firestrike, basic 3D Mark 11, and Cinebench. These suites are by no means comprehensive, but since they have widespread use, it should be easy to find and compare results online. In Firestrike, the system scored 6,364. In the basic 3D Mark 11 benchmark, the laptop scored 9,162. And in Cinebench, the CPU scored 672. The SSD performance on this laptop is pretty decent. The laptop is equipped with a Samsung PM951 and has a sequential read of about 1.6 GB per second and writes of about 300 MB per second at a queue depth of 32. These performance metrics were measured out of box, so expect the performance to drop over time. Now moving on to the display, the first thing I want to note is the hinge on my particular model is slightly loose. It has a bit of a play when positioning, but it isn't too big of a problem. I'm hoping that it's just a problem with my particular model. The display itself is an IGZO Quad HD Plus 3200 by 1800 that many users will be familiar with at this point, since it has been used for quite a few generations now. It has very good viewing angles with minimal color variance until the very extreme angles are reached. It has beautiful color reproduction, and using a Spider 4 Elite, we can see that the panel can reproduce pretty much 100% of the sRGB range, making it a very capable machine for video and photo editing. Now the only drawback of the display is how reflective it is. Even at max brightness, it can be difficult to see in well-lit rooms with multiple bright hotspots. Right above the display is a 2.0 megapixel webcam. Not much to say on it other than it provides a pretty decent experience when conferencing, no complaints here. Now onto gaming. At this point, we all know the GTX 970 is a great performer, but just can't handle 4K gaming with decent results. So I'll be sticking with 1080 performance through all these tests. I'd also like to mention that during my gaming sessions, I did not see any form of GPU throttling whatsoever. So whatever design change that Razer has decided to implement with this generation seems to be working pretty well. For light games like Heroes of the Storm, the Blade played it pretty decently, but it did run into some issues with the game having problems fully utilizing the GPU, causing FPS dips into the mid-40s during intensive team fights. After doing more research, I found that this is an ongoing issue with the game itself, so I won't hold it against Razer, but do keep that in mind. For slightly more intensive games like Overwatch, the laptop still had no issues at 1080p. The Blade easily played the game at 60 frames per second on Ultra, with FPS dipping to 55 only during very intensive moments. Highly intensive games like Doom and Witcher 3 are where the Blade starts to struggle. It was only able to maintain a decent 60 frames per second when the graphic presets were set to medium. The battery life of the Razer Blade is acceptable for what it is. Keep in mind that this is a gaming workhorse and not an ultrabook, so don't expect 7+ hours of use. With mild web surfing and local video playback, I was able to squeeze about 5 hours and 24 minutes into a single session. Gaming with Overwatch with battery boost off and max screen brightness netted me about 2 hours of continuous gameplay. For thermals, I measured the areas above the keyboard itself, and the palm rest using a non-contact IR thermometer. The top of the laptop gets fairly hot, ranging anywhere from 110 to 120 degrees Fahrenheit, with the keyboard and palm rest at a toasty 95 to 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Alright, so conclusion time. The new Razer Blade 2016 is a phenomenal laptop with so many right things going for it. The new Skylake CPU along with the redesigned cooling has really brought the thermals under control. The screen and GPU provide a great experience for productivity and gaming, and the battery life is good enough to get you away from the outlet for a few hours at a time. Doing all of this while keeping its slim form factor and doing it for $400 cheaper is nothing short of amazing. With that said, there are a few things that can be improved on. The bezel size is probably one of the most complained about aspects of the Razer Blade, but I'm hopeful that this will change in the future. The arrow keys on the keyboard are a minor issue, but does add some frustrations when I'm in a rush. The Wi-Fi is a big problem for many Blade users, and I've personally had some issues with my 2014 Razer Blade's Wi-Fi randomly dropping from time to time. And with the 2016 model, I'm having some issues with slow throughput performance on 2.4 GHz. If Razer can focus on improving these points in the 2017 model, in addition to adding Pascal GPUs, they could really have a monster on their hands. Well, that's it for my review of the 2016 Razer Blade. I really hope you enjoyed it, and if you like my video, please like or subscribe. It really helps me out, and I'll catch you guys next time.